They say the moment before your death, your life flashes before your eyes. But what if that life that flashed before your eyes was every other life of yours?
Hold on, I'm lost in thought.
That's what I did. That's why I already did that. I was getting it out of the way to begin with.
And with that, welcome to this week's episode of the 800's. I am your co-host, Alex, and you just heard from my extremely sexy co-host, Adam. And special shout out to Alan, the man behind the camera who makes it all happen. Thank you as always. And why don't we just go ahead and jump right into our plugs for this week?
Sure thing. If you joined us for the pre-show showing thing, you heard Fearless First by Incompetech. You should check out all of their music because they're dope. That's filmmusic.io.com. Is that the right thing? Hang on a sec. Yeah, Incompetech.filmmusic.io. Swapped it around a little bit. No.com. Incompetech.filmmusic.io. Also, we have Patreon that you should know about because that's how we do book votes. So you should check out our Patreon link below the video. You should check it out now and go vote on the book.
Everybody can vote.
Everybody can vote. For now. So you should give it a quick click while we're talking about pre-game stuff. And,
tell us what to do.
You can vote. Tell us what to do. And then come back here and talk about the book. Real quick, also, we have a YouTube channel. You should check that out. Links below the video. And I thoroughly enjoy audiobooks. You should check out audiobooks too. If you want to give Audible a listen, go to dmstable.com/audible and get 1 month free subscription and a free book.
And don't forget, we got an Etsy now where our man behind the cam, Alan, is making some cool, pretty minimalistic little keychains and stuff. And if he comes up with other ideas, they may end up on there. So if you want some cool, nerdy stuff, go ahead and give it a look.
It's pretty dope. I've got the Tetris set that's on there. I like rearranging it every now and again when I'm standing thinking of things in my kitchen.
Deep thoughts.
Yes. Currently, it looks like somebody's flipping a middle finger, but totally coincidental.
Art. So this week on the 800's, we'll be discussing the best-selling novel, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Nora Seed has found herself at the end of a rope. Her family is past or ignoring her. Her friends have all seemed to move on with their lives, and she just lost her job and her beloved cat, Voltaire. She's decided to end her life. But when she takes the plunge, she finds herself caught in space between time, connected to every infinite version of herself by books. It seems the Midnight Library has a few more lessons to teach her.
Ooh, what could those lessons be?
Let's chat and find out.
If this is your first time joining us today, I'll give you a quick rundown of how things work here. There will be a topic or question to discuss. That topic or question will either come from Alex or myself, or chat. If you have something you want to talk about, throw it up in chat. We'll grab it, put it out there for everyone to discuss. Yeah, I totally read the book. Alex and I will go back and forth about what we think about the topic or question, and then after that, we'll take a look at chat and throw out to whatever chat's chatting about. So make sure you get in those comments and any questions or topics that you want to discuss.
And as always, just a quick reminder that this is a show geared towards adults. We cover adult topics, and while we try not to spare too much, it does happen. Also, at the DM's Table, we're trying to create a fun and supportive community where people can enjoy their interests and hobbies without feeling judged or like they can't just enjoy them to the fullest extent. So in sum, be nice or fuck off.
Yeah. With that, let's get the conversation started with our traditional first topic. What were your initial thoughts?
All right. So, my initial thoughts on this were this is like instantly my mind went to this is basically like A Christmas Carol or It's a Wonderful Life without Christmas. And, somebody dies, finds themselves with kind of like a guardian angel type or, genie in a bottle, I think is like the literary metaphor usually. And they get a chance to look at what their life would be like in a slightly different way, or if like a certain possibility came out. The biggest difference with this is like there's like pretty upfront about it. There's an infinite number of possibilities as opposed to a fairly limited amount. So when I was reading through it, like I was like, I was getting the feeling of like I've heard this story before. I'm wondering. I was waiting. It took a little while for me to see like where's the real hook for this, other than just infinite possibilities. But that at least initially seemed to be most of just what was going on, and it hinged a lot on that. Which, when you're taking a trope that is that common, and especially popular with things like Charles Dickens and one of the most well-known Christmas movies of all time and like any number of books and movies, you really need a strong hook. And I had a hard time feeling that strength, but at the same time, this was kind of like I got like reading through it, I still got the kind of like feel good chicken soup for the soul type of feeling reading the book. Like it wasn't a hard read. It just wasn't challenging to me as far as like the actual read went, especially early on.
Yeah, it was a catching, an attention-grabbing way to start the book. Obviously from the premise of the book, we know how the first bit's gonna go down.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the feel of the library, that it was it was her library. It's kind of neat. I was very curious about which regrets she would tackle first. So right off the get, I was curious about how it was going to go and if she would ever find a life for her, so to say.
Yeah, I do like the setting. That was probably, at least to me, I think part of the reason why it was so comforting to me to read about like it being like, I know it's the title of the book, the titular Midnight Library, but just the feel of it and the way that the author described the library just kind of felt homey, and it was nice to have, with a character who starts off in so much pain, it was nice to see them in a space where they felt at least a little safe and comfortable, because it kind of creates space for her to change, and without that comfortable space, would change even happen? And
Yeah.
I'll discuss that a bit more as we go down the road, because it's a big premise of this book. But let's Stormy caught the reference. Go Miguel Cabrera. Congrats on 3,000 hits, 33rd person, and the third Tiger. Anywho's, back to the book part. Looks like V.S. Drake liked it from the get-go. Felt like it was similar to some movies that they'd seen and really enjoyed it in book form. What did you think of the similarities to like other books and movies that you'd seen with this theme?
I don't know if I've really experienced this theme that much in other media. Like, do you have any examples that you would draw?
The ones that I gave in my first impressions, again, like Christmas Carol, It's a Wonderful Life type of stuff. I'm trying to think about something a little more modern, but I know I've seen it in TV shows where they'll typically take an episode where somebody gets like knocked unconscious, and it's the "what if I wasn't around" scenario, or the "what if I changed this one decision." the biggest difference is, again, she gets to explore many of them.
Yeah.
Heck, I think even the Magicians uses this to an extent. The library is a much bigger thing, and it tells the entirety of their life, and there's infinite versions. They're just not as easily connected. That's the big difference. But, it gets used.
I like the Bruce Almighty comparison via Strike throughout there.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely... Oh, Click.
That's a good one.
That's a similar one where, the magic power is the remote in that case. It works a little differently, but there's the chance to go back and redo. Stormy does bring up a good point that, like, her book of bad decisions was quite substantial.
Book of Regrets, yeah.
Yeah, her book of regrets. Wow, we're all over the place. We're getting to, like, the very beginning and the very end of the book and all of this. So why don't we wrangle it a bit and start with the book of regrets? Were there any regrets that Nora had that really stood out to you, or that resonated with you, or that you thought maybe were silly, that stood out in some way?
Yeah, I think one regret I think that is quite common, and you see a lot in media, is the regret of choosing essentially your life with someone over doing something else. Like we just saw it in I forget the name of the book, but the book where the lady goes to England, and there's that
The Lost Apothecary.
Lost Apothecary, yeah. She regrets the choice to give up her field of passion for history in return for marrying her husband and getting a stable job. We see a little bit of that in this story too, where she gave up her dreams in order to fulfill the dreams of either her family or the man she was going to marry. Yeah, I feel like that one is a very very relatable regret.
Yeah, I think what this comes down to is a theme that I think part of the reason why I think this book got the ratings that it did is it touches on a theme. It took me a while to see it, and that's why I didn't put it in my initial impressions, and I'm surprised it took so long. But it touches on a theme that I think is arguably one of the most universal in human existence, and that's the theme of what if. Being able to live the possibilities and know, answer every what if question, because what if is the question that is the pinnacle of both curiosity and regret. I mean, that it neither can really exist without some form of it. And like you said, one of the biggest ones out there is the what if a life with somebody versus a life of doing something. And I thought it was interesting how there's two versions of the what if with somebody that Nora goes through. Is the what if the person I was supposed to be with, and what if I had just said yes to an opportunity to be with?
Yeah.
And I thought I wish the book had touched on it a bit more, but I actually really liked the one where she was a glaciologist.
Yeah.
And she got attacked by the bear. And that was that first instance of, oh, I actually want to live. Like, that one stood out to me because, like, there's a lot of people who, like, unless they're faced with something like that, it's easy to think that you don't want to live until you're faced with death. And it's one thing when you can choose how it happens, but when you can't, do you accept it like an old friend, or do you cling to life? And I know part of that was built in to be a bit of a struggle because she forgets it later on. And I think that's actually kind of very human of her to forget that, once things have worn off a little. And I wish they'd talked a little bit more about, the importance of that shift back and forth. They kind of do, but it kind of gets glossed over, in my opinion, a little bit. But maybe that's because that's the bit that like resonated with me. Is because like I've been in those situations where I was just like, do I really want to die, or do I just not die, but like, do I really not want to live, or do I really want to like just have space, just have breathing room? And it's it's hard to see. I think what's the librarian's name? I forget off the top of my head because we're so freaking fantastic with names on this show.
Wasn't it like Mrs. Fig or something like that?
Mrs. Elm.
Elm, yeah.
Yeah. It was a tree. You got it close. So Mrs. Elm, she says you've lost. At one point, says you're missing the wood for the trees. Like, so you're basically too up close to it. And
Professor. I choose you, life, with whatever I'm picking next.
Stormy, shoot the bear. Yeah, there's a fight and flight gets talked about a lot, but there's definitely a fight, flight, or a freeze. Like, that's a thing. Yes, the librarian, Mrs. Fig. That is what she'll be known on from henceforth. And anyways, I just really like that it touched on it. I wished I had more, but I think that was just because that was a bit that like really hit a spot for me, because a lot of the other stuff that she goes through, I have like gone through so many times on at least deeper levels for myself. So they didn't hit quite as hard, but that's one that I've, it's meant to be a bit more visceral and, shocking just by nature. So I guess that was the one that hit for me. And it was just kind of cool because of the description of what it's like to just be out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, I've been out in the middle of nowhere, and it is definitely different from just being around society. And, like, truly in the middle of nowhere. Storm Reed mentions that the cat seemed to be a big regret for her. Oh, and the stuff about her brother. I think the one which one was it where the brother was the main focus? I think there were two. One was the band. The Labyrinths.
Yeah. There was the one with the band, but then she finds out he's dead.
Yeah.
And that's the reason she comes back.
And then I thought there was another one where they had kind of a big moment. But yeah, the stuff with her brother, it makes sense though that having poor relationships with family is, I think a lot of people at some point in their lives regret it, unless they're complete narcissists. Oh, the Olympics one. That's the other one, because he's her manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the bit. Because she gets to see like that there's a possibility of a happy life for him, and I remember that one feeling like an intense moment. Like, I don't know about all of you out there, but I have a sister, and there were some moments where we very nearly ruined our relationship entirely. And that, honestly, if that had happened, like knowing what I've got now, that would have been a regret for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I'm sorry, I'm reading from the chat. I'm not sure what you mean, Storm Reed. If she dies in another life, could she make it back to the library?
We talked about that in chat a little bit.
Okay. I'm still catching up. I'm sorry. I have one screen and my phone, and it's throwing me off.
Let's talk about the guy Nora meets, who is also experiencing death lives. I forget his name, but it was in the glaciologist life. Yeah.
The French dude.
How do you... So, two-part. What did you think of him, and how the heck would you broach the topic if you thought somebody else was experiencing what you were experiencing?
I thought that was the one bit where that was the thing that threw me off, that that is this just in her head, or is this like a machination of the universe as a whole? That was the one bit where because I was convinced that this is like dream sequence from the beginning, you know?
Yeah.
And until she met that guy, and then I was just like, wait, okay, this might be like an actual like mechanism of the universe. Still could be a dream sequence, but the fact that she's interacting with somebody else who recognizes this and knows stuff about her, and shows up multiple times as we find out. But I thought it was kind of interesting because that he was basically used as a catalyst for her choosing more than just the obvious regrets, you know, to get her to really open up her mind to the possibilities, which kind of needed to happen, because I don't think in character, without some kind of outside prompt, I would have believed that this character would choose to do a bunch of other stuff. So I think it was kind of necessary to have kind of an outside push. I would have thought that would have come from the librarian, but it was kind of interesting to see, again, that there might be other, what do they call them, shifters?
Yeah.
As for how I'd approach that topic, honestly, I probably just... I think I might have approached it similarly to the way Nora tried with the people in her life towards the end, where I'd be like, so do you believe in infinite realities? And then see how they react. I thought that was a little strange, though, how easily people seem to notice like there was something wrong.
Well,
you know? I mean, I guess forgetting basic information is weird, but like they would... let me finish the thought, though. It's not just that they were noticing it really easily, but just how easily they dismissed it. And they talk about it at the end, but it was kind of strange for me through most of it. I'm like, you're really just going to let it go? Like, I know plenty of people who would never let this go. And one of them speaking to across the camera.
If my spouse all of a sudden forgot where she worked, I definitely would be like, we need to go to the hospital. You probably had a stroke. We need to go.
Yeah, and then, my mental health background would make me think like, oh, crap. Like, I know that dissociations happen and you can forget information and stuff, but that would still be, we need to get you checked out just to see. Which I guess is the fear of telling people, is getting them to believe something that sounds crazy on its own. So I guess the question that my return question to you is like, would you believe somebody if they told you that?
I think I would always think they're messing with me, and like, even if they were like, no, I'm dead serious, like 100%. I died. This is not me. I'd be like, you're so funny. Ha.
I think it would be very hard to suspend my own perception of things, even though like I consider myself, at least philosophically speaking, since let's get into that, since that's the kind of book this is, that's like one of our main character's favorite things, is constructivism, which is our reality is a construction of our own perceptions, and everybody's reality, constructed reality, is as real to them and valid to them as yours is to you. And I really felt like I wanted to believe that I could sit there and tell somebody that I believe that they believe it's real. I can't see it, but I believe that you believe it. And then I'd be, but let's get you checked out to make sure you didn't have a stroke. Let's just be extra sure. We'll not bring up this other stuff because I don't want anybody who's like in that space to be committed or anything. But like, you know, I like to believe that I'd be compassionate, but there's a part of me that would be with you there where I'd just be like, yeah, you're probably messing with me. I think it would also depend on who it's coming from, too. You know, like there are certain people I think I'd be more inclined to believe than others, you know?
Yeah, if Storm walked up to me and was like, yo, I'm shifting through lives, I'd be like, really? But like anybody else that I know. I'd be
Yeah,
like,
we've
nah,
messed with each other too much for that to go down in any way other than you're messing with me. All right, let's get into V.S. Drake's question, though. What was your favorite learning moment for her?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks, V.S. Drake. For me, we kind of already talked about it, but the moment where she's in the rock star life and she finds out that her brother is dead, and she knows down to her core that she does not want to live in a life where he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think that's kind of the moment where she started to realize that she didn't want to die, because, you know, she could probably draw that parallel of, I don't want to live in a life without my brother. My brother probably doesn't want to live in a life without me.
Yeah. And I think I had a similar thought with that polar bear experience of like, it was a big learning moment for her to realize that a part of her does want to live. And if there's even a part of you that wants to live, it's something worth hanging on to. Also, I think my other favorite bit was at the very end, because I was really frustrated with her when she gets to that life that she really loves, the one at the very end with Ash and her daughter Molly, and she loves that life so much and is like basically trying to take it over, and I'm like, yeah, no, you didn't earn any of this. You know, that's not you. You're taking over somebody else. Like, it is you, but it's, you know, it's the same instrument but different art, you know, player behind it. You know, you're taking over for somebody else, and that's somebody else's life. And when she finally realized that final lesson of like, this isn't mine to take, you know, I don't want to just, you know, take another life. I want to really live my own, earn my place in it. That was the other big one that was worthwhile for me, because otherwise I think I would have straight up disliked the main character. She'd just been okay with slipping into somebody else's. Let's see. V.S. Drake has some strong opinions. Their favorite was the Married to the Surgeon one. Yeah, where she learned that she has the potential and she can be so much more, and that she wants to do it herself. Yeah, the doing it herself part, like that was.
Yeah.
You know, as much as you are all the same person, it's not all the same life. And I don't know, feels like cheating, you know, coming in and just taking over where, yeah, somebody else did the work to get there, and you're just like, haha, I'm going to reap the benefits, bye.
Yeah, it's like, why don't they get a library, you know? Why do they fade out you know.
Well, it made it seem like that was kind of like a merging point, maybe, but maybe the library is designed specifically that nobody ever actually takes over a life. You either learn that lesson or you go on ad infinitum, you know? And it
Yeah.
just keeps you in a life that is very close to what you would want long enough for you to realize that this isn't it. Because, like, the moment where I thought that might not be the case was when she started having memories of things she didn't do. I was like, no, please don't let this happen. Don't let it go down this road. you know, yeah,
For
but yeah, would they disappear into each other? Would they become some kind of amalgamation of both? Or does the version, is it one takes over but you have the same memories? I don't know. It's just, it seems creepy to me, you know?
for me, that moment where she started having memories just felt like a literary device and not a like actual expectation of how things were going, but more of a let's build suspense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm like it worked. That's my point though, is like that was my moment of like don't like I there was some suspense because I was like don't go down that road, and the author made the choice, like it was a good choice in the end to like add that in there because there wasn't a lot of suspense in this book because a lot of it was fairly formulaic. It goes through a lot of stuff that I'll touch on that later, but it goes through a lot of stuff that I found predictable. So it was nice to have moments like that where I was like, okay, you got me. you know. Let's see. Let's go back to chat.
Oh, hi, K-Brock. Welcome to the chat.
Oh, yeah. And yes, that person is you, but it's also not you.
in a sense that you are made up of the moments of your life, the person is really similar to you.
In this case, it was like however old Molly is, plus like at least a year's worth of somebody else, because you were not a part of that,
How?
But that's the tricky bit of the multiverse,
Let me ask you this question.
All right.
How long would you have lasted in that last life with the surgeon and the daughter?
What do you mean? Like, do you think that would be my perfect life, or are you talking like in my perfect life equivalent of that?
In your perfect life equivalent of that, do you think you would be like, experience it and go, okay, I understand, and bounce? Do you think you would end up there? Do you think you'd spend a year there?
I think I would probably have basked in it a little bit. Admittedly, it's hard not to because of the feelings that would come with it. I'm curious, so I would explore, but I don't think I would have lasted as long as she did because I got uncomfortable with the idea of settling into somebody else's life from the get-go, like that being the premise.
Yeah.
For me, it would be I would treat it as more self-exploration to try and find inspiration to keep going, or if it is right for me to give up. But with infinite possibilities, my curiosity, as far as I know, is effectively boundless. I know infinite is way bigger than I can ever possibly imagine, so there would be a limit, I would imagine. But if I found that like near to perfect life, I would probably admittedly bask in it a little bit, maybe take a few notes here or there about like why it feels so good, so that I can take that, so that I could take that into my real life. But like, I don't think I'd ever be comfortable with the idea of taking over even like another version of myself, as long as like I'm taking over their body. It's not the same as like a Rick and Morty situation where he goes into another universe because like that version of himself is dead and he's taking over. A little bit different, as opposed to like taking somebody who has lived that life and forcing them into, I don't know, whatever situation it is when you take over that life, or if it even is a takeover. I just don't like the idea of that for myself.
Yeah. I'm with V.S. Drake's most recent statement about staying a shifter is unethical. I think I would never, even in a life perfectly designed for me, I don't think I would ever be able to shake that feeling of that I'm stealing it from another me. Especially if there's like a kid involved, like a lot of Nora's lives probably had.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like you're stealing time that kid had with their parent just so you could experience it. And
yeah, and that's where, like, again, you're not just at that point, you're not just affecting yourself, you're affecting the people in that person's life, which is another reason why, again, I wouldn't be able to stay very long. Staying as a shifter, VS Drake, do you mean staying in one place, like in one life, or do you mean staying as a shifter and bouncing all over the place for infinity? Let us know. As for the
both.
okay, so both. So I personally, I mean, ethics are fairly relative when it comes to infinite universes, and again, this is assuming that the other person is losing something significant, or if it's affecting people in their lives. Yeah, maybe minorly unethical if you're bouncing. I do, for my own personal ethics, think it is highly unethical to stay in a life and just take over. That part I wouldn't be able to do, especially, and I probably wouldn't be able to stay very long, but exploring through other versions of myself, honestly, I wanted, like, when I was thinking about it, I kind of want to be like a host to that, like, weirdly. I just want to be like, yeah, take a look at my life, see what you think of it. And so if it's for myself, I would be okay with being the host. So I think the bouncing around would be one thing. I would just, as long as it's temporary, I don't find it to be particularly unethical, unless, again, like you mentioned, there's like kids or like too many relationships involved. That stuff feels a little weird, but if it's just me exploring possibilities of things that I do with my life and not necessarily like relationships, those are where it gets a little weird and tangled. Now, if you're going around to different lives just trying to bang every person that you possibly had decided to like pursue or not, that's unethical. But like, I guess for myself, because I wouldn't treat it that way, it wouldn't be, but I can see how it could be. But I also think that the library is set up not to be available to people who do that.
Listen, V.S. Drake. The people in Gamer agreed to let other people bang people in their body.
Yeah, a little bit like Gamer, but like, I could draw boundaries for myself. I don't think everybody necessarily could. Again, I think the library is set up for those people who have found themselves in an in-between, and I don't think anybody who that is that introspective would be that particularly raunchy about it. But maybe I'm doing some moral projection of my own.
So what K. Brock said about being in the library to decide whether to save your own life, I think one of the things I would have liked better about this story is if the premise wasn't pick a life, but rather experience lives to determine whether you want to live. Where in the end that is what it was, but it was never worded like that.
I mean, it is touched on that there is a possibility of dying. It just never talks about the possibility of returning, but I kind of get the reason why the author didn't bring that up, is because if you bring that up, going back as a possibility, I don't know that it would be quite so easy or even possible to come to the conclusion of, I want to live my life specifically, like actively want to live it. It's, oh, I went and took notes and came back and found ways to live my life, as opposed to you really have to like understand it as a fundamental truth. And that comes to a head when the library is crumbling and she has to write something that it only works when she believes it from her very core. At least that seems to be the implication when she writes, I am alive, and she said it was something that came from her very core. And I don't think that necessarily comes from something that is given to you. It's something that has to be kind of earned. And I think...
Yeah, I guess my point is, like, I don't think the pretense of you can live in any of these lives was necessary.
Yeah, I think it was to have that, at least for the author, I think it was to have that setup of a moment of the realization that she couldn't take over somebody else's life. I think that's what it's designed. Like I said, I think my personal theory is like that's what it was designed to do. K-Brock says, maybe some of your lives need you to step in with your experience of shifting. Maybe they need that, but it also seems to imply that the people don't remember, so I don't think you affect them at all, other than just like they kind of fill in the gaps while you're there. And it would be a fairly unique premise, though, if they did remember that and gained something from that, or gained some perspective.
Well, if you jumped into a life where you were like a crack addict or something and stayed for 3 months and got clean and then bounced, you know, that person after you left would still be clean.
Maybe.
I mean, don't think too hard about the whole...
I have an understanding of addiction that's like, well, they're still coming back with all of their habits in mind, and like jumping back into being a drug addict.
I said, don't think too hard about it. It's just an example.
Fumes. But ultimately, even moral gray areas here, and again, this is a matter of philosophical points of view. Taking making those choices for somebody else, is that you're right? Even if it's you, it's by your moral standards. Yes, it's a good thing, but is that right for that version of yourself or that person? Maybe not. Like, you might think it is, but maybe they need to have their own midnight library moment. Yeah. They need to find it themselves. It's but like, it's on the same token of taking over somebody else's life in a good way. Yeah, you might have the best of intentions, but that doesn't mean that does that mean you have the right to make that decision for them? So here's something I wanted to talk about. What did you think of the philosophical themes in the book?
Yeah. Any particular theme, or just any philosophical theme?
Any that stood out to you, ones that resonated with you, or ones that you disliked, that sort of thing?
Gosh, I hate to keep going back to things we've already talked about, but the moment with the bear, the moment with the bear when she was facing down the bear and was like, "Oh, actually, I do want to live," I think that is such a powerful moment where I think it's a lot easier to decide on your own and in your own way that you want to die. But when something external happens to you that's going to take your life, you know, it's a completely different perspective. And it's interesting to see how Nora not only felt in the moment, but reacted to how she felt after the bear part.
Yeah, that's definitely like a powerful one. Like, there's a reason why it's come up several times. You know. As for myself, you know, I've read a number of philosophical texts, and I've done enough looking into, like, I might not be into necessarily the same philosophers as Nora is. Like, she's big on, is it Thoreau as her big one?
Yep.
And I did like some of the quotes, like, because it was nice to get to know his twist on philosophy, and I believe that some of it is, at least it resonates with me. One of the things I didn't like, though, is how this pivoted at the end to feel kind of like a bit of a self-help book. A lot of like pop psychology and philosophy gets thrown in the end. Or like, all you have to do is shift your perspective, and that's all you need to do to solve every problem in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, as if we all have that experience of being able to see the impact of our choices, and we don't. And I thought it was a little self-indulgent at the end there, and didn't particularly care for that the tone it kind of took towards the end with that, at least philosophically speaking. I do like some of the character moments, but that, like, towards the end, like, again, her realizing that she wants to live, and she wants to live on her own terms in her own life. It's pretty much the stuff that happens after that that I start having a little bit of a with. I did like, I did like that they treated the coming back to reality, and like, they treated the infinite universes thing as a mechanic of the universe and not as just a dream sequence. So that made a few things stick that might have otherwise, philosophically speaking. But again, that's one of the things that kind of stuck with me, though, unfortunately, was also this idea of, like, again, all you have to do is shift your perspective, but I have a knowledge of the universe that nobody else does. It just kind of negates that premise that all you have to do is shift your perspective, as if every one of us has this ability to, like, know some fundamental truth about the universe without having experienced something so wholly life-changing. And it also negates a lot of other things that, as a, somebody who's really into, like, studying psychology and stuff, it negates a lot of other elements to it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of, but I know there's a lot of, like, professional contemporaries out there that might agree with that it's about perspective. It's about, controlling your thoughts. That's what cognitive behavioral therapy is all about. It's shifting thoughts to shift your perspective. That can do a lot, but it isn't the end all be all. And I thought it settled for generic when I wish it would have gone for nuanced philosophically. That's all. It had the potential, and I was hoping for something more nuanced, and it just went the other direction.
Yeah. V.S. Drake asked a while ago, what did you think of the writing in this book? I'd like to expand on that a little bit. What did you think of the writing, and do you think Matt Haig portrayed like, there's a thing where authors have trouble portraying the opposite gender. Do you think Matt did a good job doing so, or how did he measure?
Um, I think he has a very easy reading writing style. It's not particularly challenging, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to feel a bit like a brain massage, and I think he has a good writing style for that. Uh, it's not oversimplified, but it's also not too pretentious either about itself, which kind of helped me get through the book. Because it's just kind of a easy breezy read for me. And as far as how he portrayed Nora, and I didn't see anything that was glaringly terrible about his portrayal of a woman as a man writing a woman. It did feel, though, like it was more of a narrator talking about a woman, but not necessarily a man. Like, it didn't feel like it was coming from the experience of a specific woman. It felt kind of like I don't know, like a kind of a hodgepodge, of like multiple, like it felt like he was pulling from like multiple women that he knows, and he did a decent job of that, and then kind of like molding that into like a singular woman. Because certain traits would come out at certain points where you could tell he was drawing inspiration. So I guess in that way, it does kind of come out that it's somebody like a man writing about a woman, but it's pretty vague, and there's nothing, again, very glaringly obvious or annoying. But again, dude talking about a dude writing about a woman, so.
Yeah, I think
just a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
I think Matt stayed pretty on task with his writing. He didn't stray too much into personal moments. Really, he stayed on like the themes of each life, which I think kind of makes it hard to feel like a personal connection with Nora, but at the same time, it avoids a lot of the is he portraying a woman correctly kind of a thing. I think Matt did a good job writing this book. He seemed to flow really well. It didn't seem jarring in any way. Easy read. So.
Yep. I think that's the right word for it. Is there was just a good flow to the book. Like, there's nothing that it got hung up on, but also nothing that it particularly like sped it up. Like, it wasn't like a fast-paced type of thing. It was a good, easy read and good flow. I like that. I like that term for this book.
Yeah. Let's grab another VS Drake question here that he put up a little bit ago here.
I just wanted to say, K. Brock, thank you for the confirmation. Was that it was well done from a female perspective. I know K. Brock is also female, so that's the female voice saying that he did a decent job. So we weren't wrong.
What if that the after the library life was actually a variant life and not her original life?
I mean, now you're just getting into conspiracy theory shit. I mean, for all we know is like that redo on her life is just like the good place, but she gets to try out her own life again, Like, we don't know what it actually is, but it does. I don't ultimately think it matters because we don't get to see what she does with it, and it is presumed to be her own life. And I think we just have to either take the author's word for it, or you just have to say fuck you to the author. I'm going to believe what I'm going to believe, because there's so many, like, this book is about what ifs, and you could what if this to death. Trust me, it was my favorite question growing up, and it hasn't really stopped as I've gotten older. So
get out of town. No way.
So there's I think that's a bit of an like asking like I don't begrudge the question because I think it's good to think about those things, but I think ultimately you either have to accept what the author's given you or just say fuck it, I'm not going to believe it. I'm going to believe whatever other thing. And I'm choosing to believe the author when they say it is what it is, because the whole point of this is like it comes to a point where it's about being honest with yourself, and if you're asking the audience to be honest with themselves and then fucking with them at the end, then you're just an asshole.
Before I give my answer, just real quick, if you have any more topics you'd like to talk about, make sure you chuck them in chat real quick. Here we are coming up on the end, so get them topics in before it's too late and we have to sit here awkwardly waiting to see if you want to talk about anything else. Anyway, yeah, I had that thought too, V.S. Drake, with the what if it's just another variation and it's not her original life. And kind of same thought, Alex. Does it really matter? Like, if she doesn't know if it's essentially the same Nora, but one that survived the attempt. I don't know. We'll never know.
It's all about perspective. She believes what she's going to believe, and we're just kind of sitting there with it.
I do think that's key, though, right? Is I think knowing that it's somebody else's life is what makes it not work every time. Yeah, I guess that's fair. To V.S. Drake, to your question earlier, I think in regards to whether or not she remembers the library, I could definitely see her chalking it up to trauma and the fact that she poisoned herself. You know, is more of a...
And it might just be that regardless of if... Oh. Go ahead, you froze on me, so I thought you were done. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, the life flashing before your eyes moment and then realizing you don't want to die kind of a thing.
And I was just going to say, it may just be that regardless of whether or not you return to your life, eventually those memories fade. I mean, it would make sense that regardless of if you take over life or if you return to your own, that it's a memory that would eventually fade, and just you'd be left with the feeling of experience without necessarily remembering the details of the multiverse. Yeah, there's a few streaming issues going on, but we're almost in the home stretch here. Yeah, but it does feel a bit like a cheat code if she's using this outside knowledge like for her whole life. I mean, it was a little satisfying that she went to like the kid who she taught piano to and was just like, give me another chance. He's got possibilities. I'm not going to let you go down a bad path. And I like that because she chose something for her own life that was not necessarily of her perfect life, using that knowledge, and I was okay with that because she made her own choice about it rather than trying to copy another life. You know?
Yeah, I feel like that moment too was like definitely could have been like her just sitting there thinking, I screwed up. What if my screw up causes immeasurable harm to this other person? I've got to do something about it. Like, whether or not she has inside knowledge, you know?
Yeah, it's something that she could have come up with herself. So the action that was taken with that knowledge is something that she could have come up with on her own. So it didn't feel unearned or like a cheat code in that sense. But if that goes on and she starts making, you know, if she goes up to, like, say, Ash and starts, like, talking about his sister and, like, her aspirations to, like, do whatever the heck it was that she, like that accomplishment that she made that he mentions that she called about. If you start using that, then that again gets into the weird, is it ethical thing. But I do like the implication that it's something that just kind of fades regardless of whether or not you take over a life or you go on with your own. But you're still left with that sense of, I guess, direction with your life. Despite all my qualms with how that was treated. That's, for myself, I find it overly simplified, and I think people could rise to deeper introspection, but that's just me. So any
final topics?
Well, we got through the philosophy stuff that I wanted to talk about, so like that was one thing I wanted to hit. I think we've more or less hit everything that I really wanted to. Mostly just wondering if chat has anything else, or is there anything for you, Adam?
I'm ready. I'm ready for final thoughts.
All right, yeah. Why don't we go ahead and final thoughts? If you do have a final question, throw it in, and we might do it real quick, but only if it's a pretty easy one to answer. Otherwise,
start only if we like thoughts, you. Otherwise, screw you. No, I'm just kidding.
Patreon subscribers only.
Yeah, any topics after we say the words final thoughts, you have to be a Patreon or we won't acknowledge you. I'm just kidding.
We're petty bitches.
You want to go first or shall I?
Why don't you start us off for final thoughts, Adam?
Sure thing. So I have a feeling I'm going to be in the minority on this one, but I did not like this book. From probably about halfway through, I decided this had to end either one of two ways, and if it ended any other way, it was going to be very unsatisfying to me. The two ways I decided it needed to end was either she isn't dying and will survive and understands that she can make something of her life, or she experiences all the lives and goes, yep, no matter what, every life I possibly could have lived would have been unsatisfying, so I'm just gonna die. And as soon as I had that thought, it kind of became extremely tedious to me to listen to all of the possible lives that she had. And it just kind of dragged on for me. There were definitely some interesting parts, but I definitely like books with a little more action involved. And this was very much about philosophy and making you think deep thoughts. So it really just wasn't a book for my personal tastes. I do think Matt did a wonderful job writing it. Like I said earlier, it really flowed smoothly. It had a lot of cool concepts, and it's neat that he thought of all these different variations on the same life. But to me, it was just a little too tedious.
Would you recommend it to somebody else, though, knowing your preference for action over introspection?
I don't know. Probably not. But if the right person came along who was like, I'm looking for a good book about introspection, I'd be like, well, I read this one book one time. Check that out.
Well, you may think you're in the minority, but honestly, in a lot of ways, I'm with you. And you know me, I like books that do this. I think it's more. I think this would would work just as well as like a thought experiment as it would a book. if it weren't for the fact that Matt Haig did a good job writing it, again, making it flow, making it easy to read, and again, kind of doing that little brain massage with his writing, this would have, I probably wouldn't have been even able to recommend this book. I still think I could, because I think this is a good place for people who don't do a lot of this on their own to start, as far as like thinking about perspective taking, thinking about possibilities in their life, and taking a different look at the philosophies is nice, because there's a lot of like very introductory philosophical concepts in here that were, they're good for people who are new to it or who don't do a lot of that kind of like seeking that out on their own. But for me, I do so much of that on my own that it just didn't go very far for me, because I've been there. It just didn't hit for me in that respect. I don't like actively regret reading this, so it wouldn't show up on my book of regrets, but it would, it's just one of those things that like, I don't like to do too many book comparisons on this, because each book is its own thing, but there's a difference between something like The Alchemist, which has a lot of the introductory philosophical musing and thought provocation, but it had, I think, a better story behind it. Yeah. Like a better like actual story, and not just I'm going to write like an anthology of stories for a single person. And yeah, there's some good moments. There's some good thought provocation there. So it was kind of cool seeing the quotes from Thoreau, because I'm not particularly familiar with them, but I kind of want to go and read some Henry David Thoreau now. But ultimately for me, where it failed was the very end. Again, there was a chance for it to give a little nuance, and it never did, and it gets a little oversimplified. Feels like something that I would see on like Dr. Phil or Dr. Oz or something like that, and I don't know, it rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. And just at the very end, like if they would have cut it off when she just went back to her life, I would have been just fine with that just being the end, where she just wakes up. And I probably would be a lot more willing to like this book. Ultimately, I think I might recommend it to somebody who, like you said, comes along and is looking for kind of an easy read that is meant to be a good thought experiment type of book, Yeah, but it's not something I think I would go out of my way to recommend to people.
Sounds like K. Brock enjoyed it and would recommend it via straight.
Well, K. Brock is the one who recommended it to us, so shout out to you.
Yeah, thanks for the recommendation, K. Brock. Always good to broaden our horizons. So.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that kind of got me, K. Brock, with the dabbling in the multiverse. Again, hugely oversimplified, but then again, I was reading about actual string theory books when I was in like 8th grade. So like the fact that it got oversimplified to that, I don't know, it just felt a little cheesy to me. I do like multiverse ideas because they open up possibilities. It's just with the pop psychology and stuff and it being a little oversimplified, I was like, I don't know, felt to me a little patronizing, I guess. That's the word I was looking for. Good premise. Don't think it was used to its full effect. That's all.
Yeah. All right, why don't we start wrapping up for the night?
Alrighty.
Next up, books here. So we already know about Off to Be the Wizard by Scott Meyer. One of my personal faves. That's from May 7th. So start reading. It's good. It's good. It's got technology. It's got magic. It's got it all. After that,
Does it have action?
Does it have what?
Action, like you like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's some action. Some faction action. Next after that, for May 21st, I'm going to be doing Study in Scarlet by Arthur Conan Doyle. So a classic. One I have not read, but I am very excited.
But I have. For once.
Oh, yeah. So, that's it. Off to be the Wizard and Study in Scarlet. Read 'em up. Read 'em and don't weep, because we'll chat.
Also, this next vote will be our last vote where everybody is welcome to vote. So bring your friends, bring your wives, bring your kids, bring the dude who sings on the corner. Let's leave the dude who shouts obscenities at people who have sinned, but but anybody else, bring them around. Wield the power of the vote. Tell us what to do. We are just trying to get through April, which was book month, and we're celebrating book month by giving you the choice to, like as many people as possible, the choice over what we read. And we, again, like getting out of our comfort zone. It was great. Thank you again, K. Brock, for this one. While it may not have been our favorite, I'm glad that we read it. So, if you want in on this, bring somebody around, show them how awesome it is. And if you like it, Adam will tell you what to do next once the voting disappears.
Is it the next sesh that you're missing, Alex, or is that?
Pardon?
Are you missing May 7th, or?
Oh yeah, that is correct. May 7th, I will be missing. I will be out of town, so you will get to see our man behind the cam, Alan, along with Adam. So they will be there for. I just realized they're going to be there for the one that I'm excited to read. How to Be the Wizard. So you guys have fun with them. And then I believe the following episode, Adam will be off doing things. Ironically, the ones that neither of us have read, we're not going to be here to review. So
I might be able to throw in a few comments on that one, but definitely not be in on-camera presence for that.
And that might be the case for myself as well. We'll see how things land, but we still want everybody to show up again. And May 7th will be the last vote where everybody will have a chance. So get in on that. We will have the vote up for you shortly after this episode.
Yeah, or whenever whenever it pops up.
Yeah.
To go vote, you need that Patreon link. That's a pretty convenient place to find that is below the video. But if you need the full URL, that's patreon.com/DMsTable. Pretty much any website I'll direct you to. Try and find DM's Table and you're good to go. Speaking of DM's Table, dmstable.com is where you can find out all about us and everything that we do, including the show and a couple other things like the Etsy page that is new to DM's Table. And YouTube. You should check out YouTube, DM's Table on YouTube. We post these videos, other videos, podcasts, stuff on YouTube. Let's go check that out. Facebook and Twitter are our primary socials. On Facebook, we're at the DM's Table, and on Twitter, we're at DM's Table. So give us a follow to stay in the loop about what books we're doing, especially if you miss a session. It's a good way to find out what the new book is coming up. Just follow us on those suckers. And finally, we have a Discord page, server. That's the right word. We have a Discord server where we talk all things nerdy, not just books, not just D&D, not just 3D printing, not just
memes,
nerd chat, not just folding, not just Among Us, I'm done reading off. If you want to join our Discord, hit us up on Facebook or Twitter, and we'll get you that link. But yeah, otherwise, thank you for joining us tonight. It was a blast, even if I didn't personally enjoy the book. I love talking about any book, and I love broadening my own personal horizons. So, again, thanks, K-Brock, for the suggestion. Keep them coming.
Yep. I actually do like non-action selections. This wasn't my favorite, but again, it's mostly just because I've done a lot more of this stuff myself, so I like my introspective books to be a bit challenging, and this wasn't particularly challenging, or it's mildly thought-provoking, but it's something I've done myself anyway. So, but again, that's my personal experience. So, we love not only challenging ourselves to step outside of our comfort zones, but we love challenging our typical demographic as well, and bringing in new readers. So absolutely throw these at us. There's a reason why we've done romance, we've done mystery, we've done thrillers. In fact, I believe our theme for the upcoming book is actually going to be folklore and fantasy retelling week. So fantasy retellings is basically taking folklore and turning it into a novelization, as opposed to just like a short story. And just general folklore tales that have been novelized. So looking forward to that one. There may or may not be action depending on it. It might be a thriller. It might be just some straight up mythology. Who knows?
To be determined.
By you. You.
Yeah, that's right. You. No. I'm talking to you. Yep. Now, quit looking around like there's somebody. I'm talking to you.
All right, Ferris Bueller.
Why are you still here?
All right, thank you everybody for coming out tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for coming out tonight, everybody. We'll see you next book.
See you guys. Go home.